Now, if I were to ask you what comes to mind when you think of climate change and how it is caused by human activity, then images may come to mind of factories spewing out smoke. You may think of how industry is responsible for the emissions that lead to climate change. Or you may think of how cars and planes pollute the atmosphere. You may think of how our vehicles emit carbon dioxide and other harmful greenhouse gases. But what about food waste contributing to climate change? Well, in the United States, 40% of the food that is produced never gets eaten. In a typical family of 4 in the United States, $1,500 a year is spent on food that nobody eats. And all the while, there are many poor people, many lower income families who find it hard to get enough food to stave off hunger. 1 in 8 Americans don't have enough food to put on the table each week. Now, if we were to consider food waste as a country in terms of its emissions, if we were to compare these emissions to other countries, then we would find that food waste is the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases on our planet. Third, food waste, with the United States as the number 1 emitter of greenhouse gases and China in second place, of course. In order to produce food, we need a lot of resources. We need land, we need water, you need the hard work of farmers. So by this I mean that we need labor. We also need energy to transport these goods around the world. And all of this produces emissions of greenhouse gases. And then the food that is not eaten, food that is just left to rot, actually gives off greenhouse gases while in the process of decomposing. So food waste is a big problem. It's a social problem and it's a big environmental problem. But of course, nobody really wants to waste food. Nobody intentionally wants to increase the piles of food that go to waste. More often than not, it's actually really that we have busy lives and we don't have time to plan ahead when we go to the supermarket to do our shopping. For example, I often try to buy a sensible amount of food for the week ahead, but then I find I don't always eat at home. Sometimes I have a quick bite to eat at work, or maybe I have a takeaway with friends. Maybe I buy a sandwich while I'm on the train. Or maybe I just don't have enough time to chop up vegetables and cook for myself. So we as consumers are guilty of a large share of the food waste in the world. We are guilty of producing food waste in our own homes. Researchers have looked into why we waste so much food at home. But you don't have to be a researcher, you don't have to be a scientist to understand the reasons that these researchers have explained. So researchers asked people how they would feel if they got home from the supermarket and dropped a carton of eggs, cracking all the eggs inside. Most people said they would be very frustrated, disappointed, angry at themselves for wasting food. And then if you ask the same people how they would feel if they found a full carton of eggs at the back of their fridge that had been left there for 6 weeks uneaten and which had gone off completely, well, most people replied saying that they wouldn't feel much remorse. The feelings that they feel are not so strong. They say, yes, of course, it's a shame to waste the eggs, but these people replied that they wouldn't have any qualms chucking the rotten eggs in the bin. So when we fill our fridges, we don't necessarily do so to have enough food for the week ahead. Really, it's more about the fact that we want to have lots of choice. We want to have the choice of which food we want to eat. And this is the case even if we know deep down that we have to throw some of this food away. And talking of fridges, this one domestic appliance actually carries a large share of the blame for food waste. One of the reasons we overbuy food nowadays is because we have so much space to store it in. Refrigerators have grown in size by about 15% since the 1970s, and research has found that people hate the sight of an empty fridge. When we open a fridge, we like to see it nice and full of colourful vegetables and packets of food. We don't like seeing empty spaces in a place that is supposed to be full. So just having a smaller fridge can be a significant factor in reducing how much food we throw away each week. Nor do we like seeing empty spaces on our dinner plates. If you have a large dinner plate, then you feel the need to fill it, when actually you don't feel all that hungry, really. Researchers have found that dinner plates have actually grown in size too, a 36% increase in size since 1960. So we cram these larger dinner plates with excessive amounts of food for our dinner, only to scoop it into the bin afterwards. But food is not just wasted in our homes. At the workplace, people are often rushed off their feet. We have eyes bigger than our stomachs, and we buy too much for our lunches sometimes. While at work, someone may go out to buy a takeaway during their lunch break, only to find that when they sit down to dig into it, they don't have the time to finish it off, or they simply don't have the appetite to eat all of what they have bought. Well, recently I found out about a great solution to this problem at the workplace. I found out about an initiative called the Food Cam. So what this is a table with a camera above it. The camera is looking down, focusing on whatever is on the table, and if you have any leftover food at work, then you can just place it there, and a message will be sent out on Instagram, Facebook, and email to the other workers in the same building, and they will all see the food that is too much for you to eat. So food that is left over, food that is there for whoever wants to take it. And so this means that maybe you go out for while you're at work, you decide to go out and buy a pizza. You eat half of it, and then you realize you're full up. You don't want to take it home. You don't want to leave it for the next day. And so you can just put it under the food cam, and instantly everybody, all of your fellow workers, all of your colleagues will be aware that there is this pizza there, which is available, and what the users of the food cam have discovered is that it is an excellent way of getting rid of any waste food. And of course, everybody loves it because it means that the person who has bought the lunch that is too big for them to eat doesn't feel the guilt of throwing away the food, and it also means that the other co-workers may have the chance to have a cheeky little snack when they're feeling a bit peckish during the day while at the desk. So this was an initiative at MIT University in the United States, and hopefully soon it can be spread elsewhere. I think it's a really good idea for getting rid of leftovers and reducing food waste. So food waste is a big problem. We have heard about how food waste is a problem in our homes. Also at the workplace, food waste can be a problem. But it's not just in these two places. It's not just the consumers that are responsible for food waste. Food is discarded throughout the chain of production. And much more needs to be done by everyone, by all of the links in the chain. So much more needs to be done by farmers, by those who transport food, by those who sell food in markets and supermarkets, by those who work in the restaurant and catering sector. But what we really need is for governments and regulatory authorities to bring in the right measures to reduce food waste in a way that suits everyone, because I think it is a very noble objective, and it's something that really can be done. Food waste is a serious problem in our modern times, but unlike other problems in our world, it's a problem that we can solve. All we need to do is to try. Thank you.